Okay, so I'm going to call our meeting to order. And we want to welcome this afternoon. We've got Keith Corlett and Henny Booters. These are the AGs for Sector 1 and 2. Henny is actually stuck with the responsibility of the Rotary Club of Chatham. So we wish her all the best. And I kind of think maybe Ken was tired of us, so he dumped us off on Henny. Not sure if that's the way it went or not, but
no, not at all, not at all.
And so that will be starting basically July 1. So just to let you know, we are going to take the month of July off from our regular meetings and coming back on August 4 when we'll be joined by President Brenda Woo Tipton. Start our year off perfect. So we'll get that started. I'm going to just pause my recording only because I want to, I'd send out a notice to our members. We need to take a vote and we'll get this proceeding underway. So 1 second. Okay, so we'll resume our regular meeting here, which many of us are on to look forward to a little bit of entertainment and a little bit of dry humor. So first of all, we'd like to, again, welcome everybody that's here. And we like to start out with our happy thoughts. And so does anybody have a happy thought they'd like to share with us? I see Peter.
Hi, just an update on the Guatemala stuff. I guess everyone knows that we submitted towards the end of May, but then we got a note back from Rotary saying that they've run out of money for global grants in the 2021 fiscal year, and we'd have to resubmit. So we resubmitted right away. And then we got another note saying approvals have been suspended until July 19th. However, apparently the process is still going on because about a week ago, we got a letter from the reviewer of our project who had a lot of questions about, Rotary likes to have a lot of metrics. So they wanted the names of each school, the infrastructure, whether they're ready, like, do they have computer rooms, the number of students per grade, the number of students, the number of teachers per grade, the level of education of the teachers, whether or not they have university degrees, the ratio of boys and girls, does a school have access to the internet? Anyway, and then there was a bunch of other questions. Most of those questions are relatively easy to deal with, but it is a bunch of work for our counterpart in Guatemala to basically go back to the school board and get all the numbers and put together a spreadsheet with all the information. We have put together a response that's just waiting for her spreadsheet, which we hope to send in to Rotary the first or second week of July. There's no rush on doing anything because they can't approve anything until July 19th in any case. But the number of questions they asked was a lot fewer than for the Boreas project. So I think we're well on our way to getting it approved, hopefully by the end of July.
Great, thank you, Peter.
One more, if I could ask a question.
Wish good luck. I hear you, Barry. There you are. Go ahead.
Yeah, Peter, I think you should share with the club to what degree your primary contact in Pétain has had COVID.
Oh, sorry. Primary contact is Sandy Contreras, and she actually didn't have COVID, but several people in her club have had COVID, which really delayed us getting the project in. I mean, to the extent that all the papers from 4 of the schools happened to be in one of the other Rotary members' houses, and then he got COVID, and then he got sent to hospital. So we had to go back to the schools and get new copies of the papers because no one really wanted to go get the papers from his house. That one, those papers still are missing. Well, we haven't been scanned and posted into the cloud space yet. We use cloud space a lot for providing information to Rotary because these projects, they like lots and lots of details and lots of supplementary documents. But anyway, getting back to the COVID question, at least 2 of our friends have died of COVID. Several of the members of the club have had COVID. Several of the various municipalities we're dealing with 5 different municipalities in Payten in this project. And they're sort of flipping back between yellow and red zone as the virus waxes and wanes. And Guatemala is only 3% vaccinated, compared to 66% of our population is vaccinated, at least the 1 dose. They have 3, and they are getting some more vaccine, but it's going to be a long time before they're vaccinated in a way that's safe enough to visit or safe enough for them to be there.
Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. Any other happy thoughts? Andy Watson?
Yeah, well, I have a happy thought. Later on this afternoon, we get to watch my granddaughter graduate from high school in Calgary. She's Ian's oldest daughter, Julia, and she will be she's enrolled to come into Western come September. But the high school graduation is online, and we expect to watch her graduate from high school.
Excellent. And last call on happy thoughts. Henny's got a happy thought.
Yeah, thanks, guys, for just like supporting the crocus business for Ridgetown Rotary already. We're on 15% sold, and it is, and it's only been on the net for once or twice. So just like it's running, everyone is kind of interested. And we have a sign out now, and just that the phone calls are coming in, and that's really nice. So just thanks to everyone who donated already and just signed up. And
Henny,
just like the second one is I just already donated for my shot just for the drop. So Kate and I just are both fully vaccinated, and we are just past that line for 2 weeks already. So we are free to go. Yeah, thank you.
alrighty, thanks, Henny.
Yep.
And the crocus is for polio, turning things purple. So it's
Yeah.
a great project for the Ridgetown Rotary Club. And if you want to get a number of crocuses, just reach out and they can help you out.
Thank you.
Just on a bit of an update, Rick Budnaric, I reached out and I talked to his wife, Ange, earlier today. Barry Fraser had talked to her earlier. Rick has gone into hospital, currently here in Chatham. There is a bleed that they're trying to figure out what's going on, and he will be transported to London on Thursday to his regular doctors that have done so much to take care of him. So we wish Rick all the best. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to introduce our guest speakers that are here today, who happen to be 2 of our own club members. And I've always found that there's some interesting banter when these 2 gentlemen are talking. So we'll put a wake-up call in for Tom as soon as Barry's done. And we'll ask, I guess it's Barry that will be starting the procedure for us today.
Well, thank you, President Brett, fellow Rotarians, and our guests. I'm not sure about banter. It's a rather serious topic that I'm going to be talking about, at the very least. But I'm glad to be able to work with Tom on this project. And we think that we have more to say than what we'll be able to get through today. So we'll leave that with future programming. But it's an honor for me to be given the opportunity to reflect back on the past 50 years of our Rotary Club. Between Tom and I, we represent very close to 80 years combined as far as membership is concerned, and I bring 43 of them. So some will say that it really looks like it too. So in my judgment, I think also with you, Tom, that having women in Rotary, and I'm looking right here at Diane right now, my goodness, thanks for coming up on my screen here, full blown across the screen. It's the biggest strategic move that Rotary International has ever made, and including in this club. in the last over 100 years worldwide, and as well in the last 50 and even in the last 30. And I will share some history relative to that 30. So for close to 30 years now, women have figured strongly in our club as members, but not always. And now for some of the rest of the story, as they say, and Tom. So this July 1st, Jennifer Jones of the Windsor Roseland Club in our sister district 6400 will begin her term as president-elect of Rotary International, thus becoming the first woman president of Rotary come next year in 2022. That's a very significant milestone. And I had the privilege of Jennifer inducting me as district governor back in 2017. At the time, I was being very grateful to this club for nominating me to serve in this most worthwhile organization as Rotary. Jennifer at that time was the first woman to be vice president of Rotary International, and she served a 2-year term through the year that I was DG in 17-18. Now, as we all know, often change does not come easily, but Rotary, being the progressive organization that it is, for sure, is willing to adapt, sometimes one step at a time. It is all about the proper timing to reflect changing societal directions. And we need to think carefully on that as we involve with many things going on around us. A short time after past district Governor Keith Koch died now over a year ago, his daughter Debbie passed on to me a number of Rotary memorabilia that her father had. One of them was this photo of the club membership taken back in 84, 85 with the then 125 members. So Brett, if you could share that photo, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, give me 1 second here. That's the biggest I can get it to go.
Oh, I don't see anything here.
Here.
Do others see it?
Can other people see this on their screen?
No,
No, that's good.
No,
not yet. It just says that you started screen sharing, Brett.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
maybe it
Yeah,
needs a
that's all it
moment.
says.
Let me try again.
Okay.
Well, if you can't get it, I'll just show it here.
Give me 1 more sec. We'll try again.
Oh yeah, there we are.
There you go.
Yeah. So
Oh, I see Keith.
it's a very clear photo, and but you take a careful look at that. There's not one woman in that picture, and that's back in the mid 80s. The only women in Rotary back at that time were the spouses of Rotarians, and they were called Rotarians. Now, I'll just take a closer look at that photo. It is Rotary, and you see in there's every Rotarian. This was taken in Christchurch Anglican, where the club met for many a year. You'll see that most all members wore ties at that time. And more times than not, especially in the wintertime, everybody wore a coat, jacket, and whatnot. It's a lot more formal at that time. It was well recognized even then that back to the women, they assisted greatly in Rotary, especially in the social aspects of the club activities, but not to be in as members and attending the meetings, except for as guests. So in the front row, if you look carefully, the presidential lineage at that time from left to right are there. And starting from the left, Augie Sunnan, who is the third person from the left in the front row. And then Keith Koch, and then Hank Broman, and then
Glenn Smith.
Glenn Smith, who has the chain of office on him. And at that time, that chain carried a plaque, a banner, a plate representing the president of each of the previous years, starting from back in 1921. I well remember it. And then Eddie Mariconda, and then Dick Pierce, and then Proctor Dick was there. He was district governor from the club into the district in 1947. Anyway, they're all presidents back in the 1980s, with the exception, of course, of Proctor. So Brett, you can stop sharing now. So we'll be we may be all very familiar with the newly introduced theme across the Rotary world this past year of the three-way theme of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI as it goes by. And again, with Jennifer Jones being a strong promoter and initiator, it's become, and it will become officially in action come July 1st. Now, looking back, it was really a stretch for women to be even thought about being members in Rotary way back in 1978, some 44 years ago. It was then that a renegade Rotary club in California began to meet, allowing women into the club as full members and to be directly active. Now, that move was clearly outside of the then bylaws and procedures of Rotary International, but that club kept on going, and it kept challenging within Rotary International internally, and then it took its fight right straight through to the Supreme Court of the US on the terms of there you go, diversity, equity, and inclusion as we know it as of today. And that's 40 years ago. So the California club won that challenge back in 1984, I think it was. And Sylvia Whitlock, herself a Black woman, who was a member of that club over in California, and she then became part of the first Rotary club that could have members in it back in 87, 88. And then she went on to become the first woman president of a Rotary club worldwide, and then the first woman district governor in the world. Jennifer Jones actually interviewed her at the RI convention just last week. I saw the interview live, held in Taiwan. Of course, nobody was able to go to Taipei for the convention except those living on the island of Taiwan. But very excellent program that took place. So she, Jennifer Jones, interviewed her, and incidentally, the first woman in the world to be district governor nominated was Virginia Nordby, right within our district, from the Ann Arbor Club, and in our district. She is now the oldest living district governor in our district, and now living over in Kalamazoo, and still very firm of mind, I might add. So let's go back again to our club in 87, 88, when the first women were to be allowed into Rotary. That was the year I had the honor of being the president of the then 127 member club in that, remembering back to that photo we just looked at. I was very young, enthusiastic, and inspired to induct induct the first woman into the club that year, because that's when you could do it. That being and that was the way it was. But we had out in the community, we all knew it, Karen Kirkwood White, the then already experienced CEO for the United Way at Chatham, Kent. And she was thought to be the most worthy first person to come in as our first woman Rotarian. but would you believe the time was not considered right? And it turned out to be with significant opposition within the club. I can well remember that. I remember change takes time, and that certainly was the case in this instance. It then took some limited number of years for women to be supported adequately within our club, then to have women inducted into the club. So now over to past president Tom Storey to carry forward this story of women coming into the club. And I'll come back in a bit to talk about another major initiative within Rotary and within our club, time permitting. Over to you, Tom.
Thanks, Barry. So I was on the board that year that Barry was president. I don't really have much recollection of it, so I guess it wasn't that memorable, Barry. But that's probably a good thing. Usually, if people do remember when a guy was president or a woman, that's not a good thing because something terrible probably happened. So my recollection is a little different from yours, but I think we're basically aligned. So Doug Solomon followed Barry. I was vice president, or president-elect under Doug, and we thought that would be the year on the board that since we got nowhere under Barry's leadership, not his fault, that we'd be finally admitting a woman into the club. And so we discussed it a fair bit at the board level. We would spread out at our meetings, regular meetings, and discuss it informally at each table just to try and get the pulse of the club. And because the last thing we wanted to do was invite someone and have the club reject, when we vote for members, have someone rejected. So the mood was fairly positive. So we thought the time was becoming right to make that move. And but it didn't happen during Doug's year. And then I thought, oh, well, it's going to happen for sure in my year. And it didn't. So the following year, it was Jack Pearson. And, we had a bit of a conundrum in the club, around the board anyways. We had sort of a dual problem. I don't know if I've talked to you about this, Karen, or not. We probably have. But on the one hand, we were concerned that we didn't want to single somebody out that might attract criticism or unwanted discussion, let's put it that way, at a personal level. On the other hand, we wanted someone who was a leader in the community, very well known in the community, had an executive position, someone who we thought would follow the four-way test. And we selected Karen anyways. So, we've never looked back, Karen, as you are well aware. My only anecdote I want to say to that, because we had a little bit of opposition, not on the board, which was fully supportive. We were visited by four veteran members who wondered if it was a timing thing, whether it was right, like Barry suggested when it was his year. But the board was adamant, we're going to bring Karen forward, and I dare anyone in the club to say she shouldn't be a member. And only one person did, and that person left the club. So it worked out very well. When Karen became president, she gave one of the most memorable it was a classification talk. I beg your pardon. Was classification talk or your president's talk, Karen? Maybe I got them mixed up, but anyways, it was memorable, even if I can't remember which one it was. So yeah, and as we never look back, like I said, we've had many women in the club providing tremendous leadership, and I doubt we'd even have a club today if we hadn't made that move in 1991. So.
Yeah, so
back to you, Barry.
Yeah, so 1991. Yeah, So it did take time, but obviously, we'll obviously have a look back, and that being in our club, and I can well say that that's exactly the same in so many other clubs in the district and worldwide, to the point where I would say that it's getting close to 40% of the membership now is women around the world. There are some sections in the world where a long way yet before women come in. That being the case, just move on. So that is what I would call internal operations and a very major drive of Rotary. But now looking at from a programming perspective, I would think that polio, the eradication of polio in the world, has been a very major focus of Rotary now also for 40 years. So I note that the formal start of the worldwide polio eradication program started in the early 80s. And it's gone forward to the point where in 2019, polio was declared non-existent on the continent of Africa, when it was declared polio-free. Back in the 1980s, over 3 billion children had contracted polio each year. 350,000 is what I should have said, every year. But how did we get to the point of that number back in the 80s to now only 2 recorded cases of environmental polio in the world today, in Afghanistan and Pakistan together, just 1 per country? Well, the RI polio story began in 1977 when the first Rotary Club polio campaign started in the Philippines. 1 club. At that time, as I said, there were 350,000 cases worldwide, many of them being in the Philippines. It was then a tragic health problem. So how did we get to those 2 countries back being 350,000 back in the 80s? Yeah, well, the success of the developing polio vaccine story in the Philippines in the late 70s and early 80s, where polio eradication became an official RI campaign in 1984-85. Then the year that Keith Koch was president in 86-87, $110,000 was raised for polio, an amazing amount, all from within the membership of our Rotary Club. It was truly an outstanding campaign. I know that Keith had set a campaign goal of roughly $90,000 to be raised within the club, and we surpassed that by 20,000. So in the year 87-88, the year that I was president, the worldwide RI polio campaign eradication program was officially launched. And now it's been in place now for going on 34 years. So that's been a very significant program worldwide, as we say. So we in Rotary around the world and in our club have seen polio eradication as an urgent need and a real threat to all young children around the world. And we've had since the late 1990s, really around 2000, the Gates, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation partnering with Rotary, and for every $1 we raise there, they contribute too. So $1 becomes a 3. And so taking the story further, we've already mentioned past President Dick Pierce. So Tom, can you take it from there as far as Dick and Lois are concerned?
Tom, are you on mute?
Okay. Dick and Lois were inveterate walkers. They loved to walk for exercise, and you would often see them walking to Wallaceburg and back, for instance. So they were, as it turns out, they were training to walk across Canada. Now, of course, the landscape around here doesn't prepare you very well for the Rockies, but nonetheless, in April of 1990, in their 70s, and Dick now retired from being the CAO at General Hospital, dipped a cup in the waters of the Pacific Ocean at White Rock, BC, and walked across Canada, began their walk across Canada. And as they walked, remember, emails were just starting to become common, not there yet, certainly no internet, no social media like we know today. But word spread as they started their walk across the country that Dick was a really major supporter of the Rotary Foundation, both when he was district governor and certainly as a member of our club. And clubs along the way, along their path, would track him down and get him to come speak about the foundation to their membership. So although they hadn't planned to do this moving speakers bureau, so to speak, he did. They spoke regularly about their walk and gaining contributions to the foundation, which was not something they had planned, but every club and individual members were keen to do it. In November, so they crossed the country, and in November of that same year, late in November, they made it to Halifax. I was president that year, and we heard a lot from them primarily through, I think, Margaret Berry, if I remember correctly,
Yes,
their
Margaret.
daughter Margaret. I called the president of the Halifax club to let him know that two people from Chatham, a Rotarian and his wife, were finishing their cross-country walk in Halifax, and maybe he and a couple others could join them for the last kilometer or so. Well, they had a big turnout, excuse me, from their club. And then a bunch of people from our district also flew to Halifax, including our district governor that year, Brimer Williams, really good guy. So they were accompanied the last kilometer or so down to the docks in Halifax, where they took out the water they had collected in White Rock and poured it into Halifax Harbor. Now, there's no certification that they didn't just fill up a cup with tap water on their way, but I trust that Dick carried that water all the way, and it was legitimate Pacific Ocean salt water that entered the Atlantic that day. So it was a huge thing for our club. It was a huge thing for the foundation, and it's incredible that they managed to do that. Plan it and do it. So I give them all the credit in the world.
Well, Tom, you've mentioned Margaret, and of course, Margaret is a very active member of the Chatham Sunrise Club now, and so the Pierce legacy lives on through Margaret, for which we should be very thankful. I might also add that her brother Ralph, he and I continue to be an entity of sorts, because he's a very strong agricultural reporter across the province, working for the Country Guide. So there's no question the Pierce name is still out and around. President Brett, I mentioned at the beginning that Tom and I have talked a bit, and we have a few more things we would like to share as time goes on, but time's rolling on here today. And, but I will say that in a future meeting of some sort, over to the program chair, Jennifer, we might want to talk about the Children's Treatment Center, the Environmental Committee, tree planting projects, the Rotary Park, Fergie Jenkins capital projects in downtown Chatham, and others along the way. That's all part of our 50 years that we're trying to draw attention to as a function of the 100 years. So if there's any questions, I guess President Brett might throw it back to you and we'll take it from there.
Great. Thank you very much, Barry. And thank you, Tom. The insights are very interesting. I think we are going to line up another session for you for sure. And I'd also like to line up Karen Kirkwood White for a little interesting comments on her first terms coming into Rotary, as it has grown tremendously since that time. I am so glad we have the membership that we have now. But we'll open it up and ask if there's any questions from the floor to Barry or to Tom.
Excuse me, Brett, could you pull up that photo again just for a second?
Whoops, I got to hit share my screen.
So while you're doing that, okay, there we go. Yep.
There you go. Thank you. So I think it's important to point out, if you look where Glenn Smith is sitting, right in the middle, and with the president's chain of office and the dark blue jacket, and if you go back up a couple of rows, you'll see me. Okay. And to get that prime position, I had to elbow a couple of the little pipsqueak Rotarians out of the way. So I come by that position probably not appropriately, because I've only been in the club a couple of years and didn't know any better. So I just wanted to point that out. Unfortunately, when I went through that photo, I looked at it, Barry, when you sent it on to Brett and copied me, how many of those people are left?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not many, not many at all. So, okay, thanks, Brett. That's all.
Quick question on the photo. Tom, did you have to turn your computer upside down to look at that photo?
No, why?
Because it came to me upside down. I've turned it around.
Oh, well, I might have. It came from Barry. Maybe I just assumed it was upside down and took steps right away. So anyways.
Well, it did go upside down. I knew Brett could look after it. Go back to the photo. Go back to the photo again, Brett. We just want to make sure you know how to do this. Yeah, so zeroing in on the photo again, well, you see Augie's son on the left, just to the left of Keith there. Well, talking about pipsqueaks, I am just kind of behind there trying to work my way through. Looks like I was standing on the floor or something. My gracious, I sure look like a pipsqueak there. So
you?
Son, he's a past president, but Tom Storey, you are part of a family lineage here. Can you explain what that's all about?
Again? I think they've all heard that.
Well, you're the how many generations you along with Allison represent?
Allison and Brad are fourth generation.
Yeah, fourth, but go back the other way.
Yeah, so well, you see Augie there, he's my uncle. Cindy's, my wife's father, was also a Rotarian in the Detroit Club. My grandfather was a Rotarian. So yeah, it goes back to the, I guess, with my grandfather was in the late 30s, early 40s when he was a member.
Yeah. So the point being that there's quite a story, Allison lineage within the club coming from the family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, any questions from the floor for these two gentlemen. Any comments from Karen?
I think probably just as you were going through that little bit of a history lesson, I was thinking about how patient I must have been back in the late 80s. And I have to admit that, you know, it'll take me a while if I have to come up with something to say, because, you know, it's, what is it, 30 plus years ago, and my memory's not as good as it was. I was a little more outspoken back then than I am now. I think I've mellowed a little bit in my older years, but I do remember some fun events as part of my Rotary year as president. So I'll see if I can find some pictures.
Yeah, because I think Jennifer and I will look at the schedule, and I'd love to hear from our first women member as well as president. And Diane McGuigan, I believe you fall into the president category as well. So maybe some thoughts from a few years back.
Well, President Brett, you took the words right out of my mouth. Obviously there's a 1-2 here today, and I suggest strongly that there'll be 1-2 coming from Karen and Diane.
Yeah, I think I might even have a copy of my speech. I'll see if I can dig it out of an old banker's box somewhere.
Good luck. All right, so I don't see any questions coming forward. So we're good to move along. Next week, it's the president's address. So you got to put up with some notes that I've made over the year, and might be a very short meeting. We'll see how that goes. The other notes that I wanted to pass along is CMHA did a quick little talk with Barry and I. So we put a little blurb on about why Rotary is supporting CMHA in the Ride Don't Hide event. Our numbers on the Ride Don't Hide still don't quite agree. I've asked them to make sure that their national board has given us the credit of some donations that we've put in. So they've assured me they'll make sure all of that is in good order. The other thing I just wanted to reiterate, July, the month of July, we will not have any Zoom meetings. We will be continuing Rotary TV Bingo, as that's not something you just stop on a dime. So people are looking forward to playing bingo, and we'll still have our vendors and things like that. Jennifer and I have to figure out how to get our next set of cards ready to go. And I might need help, Jennifer, signing into the computer at the Rotary office. I tried this morning, but I'm doing something wrong. On July 22, it will be Meet the Governor. It's an event that's going to take place in Howell, Michigan, but I'm not too sure many of the Canadian group will be able to attend and then go through whatever procedure coming back. So I'm not sure if they're going to set anything up for a virtual visit or not. But just in case, on August 4, we'll have Brenda Tipton as our guest speaker as she gets her year underway. Also want to remind everybody, we're always looking for help on the board in the way of club secretary, treasurer, president-elect, and so on and so forth. So if you've done it before, you might want to consider doing it again, because we're not having too many people step forth. Also, next week, we will be inducting Tina Hodgson as a new member. So that is on the go. So I think that is all we have for Rotary for today. And again, we want to thank Henny and Ken for coming along and joining us on a little bit of Chatham Rotary history. It's a long one, and we're getting ready to celebrate for a whole year. So I'm going to ask Julia if you would play us out, please, Julia.